Cultivation, WN, Chapter 88. Do you still remember me? When morning arrived, Su-yong silently left the house and headed for the distribution center, where the disciples of the sect go to receive their monthly allowances and rewards. At the distribution center, a beautiful lady sat inside a pavilion while distributing spirit stones and other things to the disciples that were waiting in line one by one. Su-yong went to the back of the line, standing behind dozens of outer court disciples that had arrived before him. Hey, look at him, that's Su-yong, right? One of the disciples in line recognized him and mumbled to the surrounding disciples in a concerned tone. The result of the death match between him and Dai Jung still resounded in the head of many outer court disciples, so there were still many who felt fear towards him. Su-yong? When one of the surrounding disciples heard his name, she turned her head to look at him with excitement in her eyes, the complete contrary to the other disciples there that were looking at him with fearful eyes. Once she confirmed that he was indeed Su-yong, this young disciple willingly left the line to approach him. Su-yong, do you still remember me? This disciple was a young beauty with a prideful demeanor, and she stood beside Su-yong with her arms crossed. Su-yong looked at this young beauty, and he smiled. Naturally, I remember you. How could I forget my first customer within this sect? This young beauty was indeed Zhou Zan, who had the privilege of being the first within the entire sect to experience Su Yang's techniques. I never had the chance to thank you properly for fixing my back, so I would like to take this chance to thank you. Zhou Zan gracefully lifted her robes and bowed to him in an elegant motion. Thank you, Su-yong, she said with a face full of smiles. When the other disciples saw the way Zhou Zan acted so respectfully towards Su-yong, their jaws dropped. As fellow disciples, they knew her very well, especially her arrogant and prideful character that wouldn't waver even when facing fearsome beings like Su-yong, so when she acts the total opposite of her character, they would naturally be dumbfounded. There is no need to thank me, I only did my job, something you'd had already paid for back then, said Su-yong while shaking his head. Zhou Zan stared at him intensively for a moment, her face looking as though she wanted to say something. A moment later, she spoke with her face slightly red. About that, it is almost a month since then, and I'm wondering if you were still providing such services. Because the news of Su-yong closing down his service had long reached her ears, Zhou Zan wanted to make sure that the rumors were indeed true. I am willing to pay 100 premium points, even 200. She continued to speak, her voice sounding a bit desperate. Ever since Zhou Zan experienced his godlike techniques, she had been longing to return to his room every day, a place she considered to be a real paradise. Seeing the yearning in her passionate eyes, Su-yong smiled. While I have no need for premium points anymore, there is no harm in taking a few breaks throughout the day to stretch myself. He then moved closer to her ears and whispered, however, I will be doing more than just massage you. Zhou Zan's whole body trembled at his enchanting voice, and she stood there with a dazed expression, her heart beating like war drums. More than just a massage? Zhou Zan believed that he was just poking fun at her, yet she couldn't help but feel elevated anticipation towards such a day. Zhou Zan's beautiful face was flushed with redness at this moment, baffling the disciples there even further. What did he say to her? Her entire face is flushed red. The disciples there wondered. Oh okay. Zhou Zan nodded and turned around the next instant to walk back to where her friends stood, her movements clearly stiff like a puppet. She was feeling so bashful from his words that she could no longer stand beside him without feeling butterflies in her stomach, hence her quick retreat. Su-yong only smiled at her reaction and didn't say anything else. He then glanced at the beautiful lady inside the pavilion. The beautiful lady at the pavilion did not once stop distributing things to the disciples in line, but Su-yong had clearly sensed her gaze on him ever since he'd arrived. The line advanced quickly, and within minutes, it shortened by 2 dozens of disciples. It was relatively peaceful at the line, but when it was almost Zhou Zan and her friends' turn to retrieve their things, the disciples there began making a commotion, causing everybody there to turn their heads. From a distance, 2 disciples in blue robes were quickly approaching the area, one extremely graceful young lady, and one exceedingly handsome young man, and they both wore an overbearing expression on their faces as they approached the line. And without the need for the 2 blue-robed disciples to open their mouths, everybody within the line began taking steps backward, forcing the entire line to make space in the front of the line. Su-yong frowned at the situation and the outer court disciples' reaction to the couple's appearance. Core disciples, and 2 of them, at that. It's senior apprentice brother Yun and senior apprentice sister Fang, and they are even together. Because core disciples are rarely seen outside of their cultivating areas deep in the center of the profound Blossom sect, the outer court disciples went into a frenzied state upon seeing the 2, treating them as though they were celebrities. So this is the profound Blossom sect's core disciples. Su-yong quickly noticed their peak true spirit realm cultivation base that was stronger than almost every sect elders he'd seen thus far, and he recalled when Lan Liqing called the core disciples prodigies chosen by heaven. Where have I seen her face before? Su-yong pondered as he stared at the female core disciples